professionals around the world are calling loneliness a growing epidemic. Earlier this year, Britain appointed a minister of loneliness to help tackle the problem.
But why are we lonelier today than ever before? And what are the effects of loneliness? Here to explain is our resident happiness researcher from Western University, Gillian Mandich.
We mentioned that loneliness is a growing epidemic. So how does that impact people in Canada in particular, because this is a worldwide problem, and how does loneliness impact our happiness?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially more than ever, people are feeling lonely. And when we look at happiness, when we're lonely, we're not as happy. So if people are trying to figure out ways to boost their happiness, looking at when they're feeling lonely and how they can alleviate some of that is really important. An 80-year longitudinal study from Harvard found that the #1 predictor of long-term health and happiness was social connection. So having one or two people that you could go to confide in and that they could come confide in you. And actually research from McMaster found that on average across all age demographics in Canada, about 25 to 30% of people feel lonely on a regular basis.
Wow. So let's, Gillian, look at what it means to be lonely, because you can be all alone and not feel lonely, and then you could be surrounded by a group of people and feel intense loneliness. So what does it mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes we think that proximity to people might dictate if we feel lonely or not, when that's not the case, because you can feel lonely when you're surrounded by a bunch of people. And it's very common for people to feel lonely, especially for short periods of time. Like, say, for example, you don't have a date on Valentine's Day and you're feeling sad or, lonely about that. When it persists for a long period of time, that's that true loneliness that we really want to focus on. And so if you're not sure if you're feeling lonely or not, some things that you can look at are oftentimes people start feeling bitter towards people that have a happy relationship, or they see people with friends, they'll start feeling resentful. Or if you're feeling like chronically sad for a long period of time. Also, if you're feeling like not understood or accepted in the world, those sort of things can be indications that maybe this is something to look at.
So these days, the go-to culprit for all of the world's problems is social media. So let's talk about that. Is social media to blame for our loneliness? Is it making us lonelier? Or is social media a way for people to combat loneliness and connect more?
Yeah, oftentimes you hear that, right? We hear the rising rates of loneliness and people are more on social media. And when we look to the research, there is research that suggests that. And so what I did was I looked at all the literature on this. And while we see a lot of studies that say that, there are also studies on the opposite end that are saying the contrary. So it's kind of confusing. And the reality is the truth is probably nuanced somewhere in between. Researchers from Duke University, they found that it's not so much using social media that matters, it's how you're using it and what you're doing with social media that's more important. So when you're using social media, there was a study done that found that if you use it for 2 hours or more per day, you're twice as likely to feel lonely as opposed to if you use it for half an hour or less per day.
So what then is social snacking?
Yes. So oftentimes you see in the research, people call it social snacking. And just like you go and you eat junk food and you kind of eat here and there, social snacking is when you're like creeping on Facebook pages or you're looking at someone's profile or you're reading comments, but you're not actually engaging. And while it might feel good in the moment, kind of like how snacking does, after you're done snacking, you feel like lethargic or bloated or not so good. Social snacking can lead to loneliness, and also you can feel frustrated because you've wasted a lot of time.
Oh boy, that's for sure. Okay, so let's talk about social connection and the connection to health.
Yeah, this is a huge one because loneliness has effects on health. And what's interesting is loneliness registers physically in the brain. So areas of our brain that are, when we feel socially rejected, are the same areas that are activated when we feel lonely. And when we experience physical pain, it's the same areas of the body. When we look, we're biologically wired to connect with people. We want to be loved and we want to feel love at the same time. And so when we don't, it can lead to negative health effects. So it's really important when we're looking at it to recognize that loneliness isn't just a feeling, it's also something we physically experience in the body, and it's really important to focus on that to improve our health and our happiness.
So having said all that, what are some of the strategies that we can use to combat loneliness?
Yeah, there's so many different things. And I think for different people, trying different things. So if you're feeling lonely, you have to make an effort to connect. Loneliness doesn't just happen to us. It's something we actually have to do if we want to connect. So pick up the phone, make that phone call, talk to a coworker at work, do things like that, because that's going to help to boost your or reduce
Work
your
retreats.
Oh, there you go.
retreats.
And also getting out into nature. So oftentimes it can feel hard to connect with people. And so instead, when you go out into nature, research shows that we feel that feeling of connection as well when we're out in nature. So that's a really good thing to do. Also, you can help somebody. Because no matter what we do, no matter where we are every single day, we all have the opportunity to do something nice for someone else.